Hi, welcome back, Chosen Jewels with LaShawn. I am LaShawn. Today, what I'm going to be speaking about is a little on the lines of birth control, as well as I ended up having a uterine ablation that failed. And, you go through life where some females have excruciating menstrual cycles, a lot of pain, heavy bleeding. Sorry, let me put that disclaimer out here. Some things I might say might not be fitting for others to watch, or someone might think is gross or not appropriate, or maybe a male doesn't want to listen to something like this, something like that. But I spent the majority of my life having horrible cycles, and you're never taught by your physicians to come up with other remedies. The first thing they want to say is use birth control. Well, me myself, I got into that habit of birth control that I spent well over 20 something years using different methods of prescription birth control, instead of the type of natural birth control where you monitor your ovulation. So please get into the habit. Do your research on monitoring your ovulation and let that be your birth control versus man-made prescriptions that the body kind of rebels against. What happened is over the 20 something years, I haven't counted, so I know it's over 20, definitely over 20. Um, I started out using low dose birth control pills, from the low dose pills to a birth control patch. I've even used the depot shot, and I didn't want the ones where they would implant in your skin, so I avoided those. Different types of birth control pills, and my final thing I was told is that the doctors didn't see fit for me to continue to use a pill, so they recommended an IUD. And that IUD that I ended up getting was called the Marina. Yes, the low dose pills did help keep me regular, kept me pain free, kept my cycle lighter. That that did happen. But I've discovered over the years that some more work into my diet and my health would have made a difference as well versus taking a pill. So I got into the habit is, I didn't want to deal with a cycle at all once so many years later. I was into my 30s, and I said, I'll try that depot shot because some people it makes your period go away. And that's what I was striving for. I didn't want to have a cycle anymore. So I started doing the Depo Provera shot. And yes, I had no cycle for the time that I did that. And I want to say I did that maybe 2 years, 2.5 years. What really made me stop is because how insurance was going with it. I used to be able to get it at the doctor's office. Then it went to me having to pick it up at the pharmacy. And it's a syringe. And I'm like, okay. And then it's having to find a nurse or a medical professional to give you the injection because it's like a doctor's visit that you got to come out copay for just to go back and let them give you the shot. So I am a registered medical assistant. I do know how to give shots. So I started just aiming and giving them to myself once I picked them up. And to cut down on that extra cost. What they don't now you do have some physicians that do tell you that it can deplete your bones, and they recommend that you get plenty of vitamin D. But what they don't let you also know that vitamin D is more like a hormone that the body creates when you're out in the sun. That's the best way to get it versus taking a pill. So I didn't focus on that. So yes, now in my age, I do not have osteoporosis. I have osteopenia, which is the step before having osteoporosis. So my bones are brittle. And that is also from years of using the Depo shot. Um, so I stayed on birth control, and you used to always hear this too. When you get a certain age, you can't use the pill anymore. Oh, when you get 40, you can't use the pill anymore. Well, you're 40 now. We can still give you birth control. You're not a smoker? No, I've never been a smoker. Oh, well, we can still give you birth control. Now, back in the day, it was when you got 40, you couldn't get it anymore. Now, oh, you're not a smoker, so we can go ahead and put you on something else. So that's what I ended up going through. Like, as the years went on, the recommendations of how the usage were, all of that changed. And then it got to the point that doctors was like, well, we don't want to give you the pill anymore. We recommend you get an IUD. And I'm like, I don't want an IUD. And notice this, and I'm going to put this out there. I never suffered from fibroids, even though I had a heavy cycle. Most of all of my 20s and a lot of discomfort and pain. I never had fibroids. Never had fibroids. In the beginning, I've had 2 miscarriages, but I believe that was basically on my health. And once my health improved, I ended up having 4 children after that. So I wouldn't say that had played a factor in some of the things that I'm going to talk about now too. But yeah, so I decided, this was in my mid 40s. My husband and I, at first we were like, we don't want any children. We don't want any children. The children are almost grown. That's a plus. My husband, his child was already grown when we got married. So we were like, we don't need that. So I got an IUD. And I was told by some people, oh, you're going to love it. Your body's going to adjust to it. You're going to be fine. Your cycle could be very light, or it could be non-existent, da-da-da-da. Well, got this IUD and had cramping for over 2.5 months after I got it put in. Now, what people don't tell you is this is a foreign object being placed in your body. I believe, this is just my thinking here, disclaimer, my thinking, that your body is constantly fighting against foreign objects that have been placed in your body. That's just me. So I didn't like it. I didn't like having to insert my fingers and check for the string, make sure the string has not gotten lost from month to month to month. I'm like, you know what? No. And then my husband said, you know what? Before you turn 50, we'll try to have another child. Let's have a child for you and I, because me and my husband, we don't have children together, but my children, that is their father, but we don't have any biological together, if you know what I'm saying. And so I went to my OBGYN. First I went to my family physician, and she was like, sure, women are having children later in life all the time. Go for it. She was so positive. Went to the OBGYN. His first thing was, I don't think it's going to happen. No, and we could take it out, but I don't think you're going to get pregnant. That's what he said. That's what he said. So the day that I was scheduled for him to remove the IUD, after removing the IUD, he did a pelvic exam, and he said, hey, do you suffer from fibroids? No, I've never suffered from fibroids. Any ultrasound that I've had in the past, there was no indication of fibroids. During my pregnancies, nothing. Where did this come from? So, well, we're going to get an ultrasound. And do you know, guys, the shocking part, after he removed that IUD, my body went crazy. I had such vaginal discomfort. I mean, hurting. And they scheduled my ultrasound like 4 or 5 days after I got the IUD removed. And they did pelvic as well as transvaginal. Transvaginal is where they insert the probe. I couldn't handle her inserting the probe. It was so much pain. And she was like, wow. I was like, yeah. I said, this is really weird. I got an IUD removed like a week prior, 4 or 5 days, maybe to a week. And I was just in so much pain. Well, they found 3 pea-sized fibroids that were in the endometrial tissue, not like sitting on top where, you can scrape it. They were down into my uterine tissue lining. And they were like pea size, very small. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get fibroids now. So what I did was I consulted a herbalist who I'll put the information so that you all can follow this person. And I started using herbal teas. And I will say in a later video, I'll explain more about that too. But they ended up not seeing the fibroids about a year or so later. But like I said, my body went crazy after getting that IUD removed. And then once everything calmed down a little bit, I tried to get pregnant. Now, I will tell you all this. When I chose to go on the Depo-Provera, I gained a lot of weight. When I started Depo-Provera, I was barely 135, 140 pounds. By the time I was done with Depo-Provera, getting the Mirena IUD, I was 216 pounds. Check that out. Yeah. And so with that doctor just telling me that there was no chances of having a child, I had downloaded the Flow app so that I could check with, keep up with my ovulation. Well, thank goodness I did that, because now all of a sudden my cycle was irregular. I've never been irregular, even before birth control, during birth control, and this only happened after removing the IUD. Because even when I stopped doing the Depo-Provera shot and waited a while, I still was regular. I didn't have irregular cycles. But after this IUD, my cycles were very irregular, all over the place. They went from being 5 days long to 7 days long, sometimes 10, sometimes 14 or more. Yes. So how do you try to have a child when you're always having a cycle? So he told me he didn't think so. Maybe that's one of those side effects that they don't teach you about or tell you about. Research, research, research. So then after dealing with that, I started I was doing those herbal teas, and then I will say all of a sudden my cycle stopped. That was the beginning of the year 2021. My cycle, I had no cycle for 40 days. So my husband, he thought, well, maybe we're pregnant. And I was taking pregnancy tests after pregnancy tests after pregnancy tests after pregnancy tests, and they all were coming back that I was not pregnant. Lo and behold, my department opened back up to the public, and a week or two after we opened back up to the public, I got COVID. Once I got COVID, under the instruction of a physician, they offered me the COVID infusion. And at the time, I was going through some health issues, so I said, you know what? Stepping out on this, I'll go ahead and let them do the infusion, because I wasn't vaccinated or anything like that at the time. So I did the COVID infusion. 4 days later, after having that COVID infusion, my cycle started, and it did not go away for months. I developed COVID the end of March, and the bleeding continued on all through April, all through May, I was passing very large clots. Went back to that OBGYN who did nothing about the large clots, said nothing about the very large clots, some that I were passing that were almost as big as the palm of my hand. He didn't recommend that I go to the ER or nothing. He said, well, I recommend you have a uterine ablation. But notice that the uterine ablation, you won't be able to have children. So I was feeling desperate at the time because I've never bled like that in all of my life, even after childbirth. He made it seem as if that would be a great option, that if I do the ablation, that it would either lighten my cycle or stop it altogether. His words were, I'm hoping that this will kind of push you into menopause. So my husband and I, we had to make that decision of trying to have a child. Throw that out the window. The bleeding continued. It got to the point that I could not bathe. I could not shower because that's how bad I was passing clots. And you know, if the body gets warm, the bleeding increases. My platelet count went very high. But by the grace of God, that means that my blood was doing what it was supposed to do. It's clotting. It's clotting. It was keeping me from bleeding out. Thank God for that. Thank God that my platelets did not fail me, because I got to the point of being very close to needing blood transfusions. So I went ahead and decided to tell the doctor, hey, let's do the ablation. You would think if you told him that you were still bleeding heavy like that he would push up the surgery date. No, he gave me a date in June and he stuck to it. I was calling the office, hey, this stuff is still happening. Next week, calling the office, hey, can you, well, let's see if he'll bump it up. We'll leave him a message. He never returned a call to me. I never got a call back saying, he said, well, let's try to squeeze you in and get this ablation done, get this bleeding under control. None of that. I do not see this doctor anymore. So finally, when we got in and got the ablation done, if you don't know, a uterine ablation is where they will insert a device that can, I don't mean to laugh, but this is the first thing that came to mind. Fry your uterus. It will send, it could be like a electric or whatever, but what the purpose is to burn that uterine lining to stop you from having a cycle. There's a possibility of failure. I am one of those people that is in that possibility number. That procedure failed. And I should have known that it was failing because I was reading up and watching a lot of videos, and some ladies were saying, oh, after I got my uterine ablation, my bleeding stopped. After a week or two, no spotting, I've been doing great. Well, that's not what happened for me. After my uterine ablation, I still continued to spot. I spotted I had it the beginning of June. I spotted the entire month of June. I had bleeding all in July. Then when it got towards August, I finally had a period. Now still spotting. Then I finally had a full-blown period that lasted about 5 days for August. Had one in September. No. I spotted in August, and then September had a full period. October had a full 5-day period. Right before my 50th birthday, the floodgates opened and all the bleeding started up again. It was not a pretty sight. Just think, your children planned an outing for you on your 50th birthday, which later turned into be a surprise party for your 50th birthday. And you trying to be all cutesy with your skirt, your tulle skirt, and your nice little whatever. And you got to carry around these diaper size maxi pads. That was my 50th birthday. That was my 50th birthday. So depressing. So depressing. I went back to that doctor. I told him what was going on. Let's wait a while, is what he said. I think you're going to go into menopause. Let's just wait a while. So I had a period at the beginning of November, and then I flipped around right before Thanksgiving and had another one. Yeah. Then turned around the beginning of December and had another one. Okay, excuse me. I said, okay, I'm gonna leave this fool alone. This is exactly what I said. I'm gonna leave that fool alone. Called up another doctor, told them my situation. Can you come in today? I said, he'll see me today? Oh yeah, he'll see you today. He did an ultrasound in the office. He said, you got a lot of uterine lining to be a person who had had an ablation just this past June. A lot of uterine lining. I don't want to deal with what I got here in the office. I want you to go over to the hospital, get a stat ultrasound, get some blood work done. That's when they discovered how my platelets were back up again, because I was having that bleeding. The ultrasound testing, let's just say, by the time that technician gave me that transvaginal ultrasound, that room looked like it was a murder scene. Like somebody either got stabbed, cut, something. I was so embarrassed. And as I'm trying to get up off the table to go to the restroom to get myself cleaned up, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm just so sorry. She said, no, you're fine. Just go ahead. Don't worry. This is part of my job. You're fine. To be told, your ablation failed. And after the ablation failed, I started going to this other doctor who tried to get me on Lupron injections to stop my cycle. And he wanted me to have 4 months of this injection, hopefully to push my body into menopause so I can stop having to go through this. My insurance declined me. Now, mind you, I've had some decent health, and I've been paying almost between $150 to $200 every 2 weeks for this health insurance. And then finally, when in my moments of needing it, now I've been with this place for over 20 something years working there, and here I finally need my insurance to kick in for my benefit, where I just been giving y'all my money and been in decent health. I got declined for the injections. I got declined. So by the grace of God, I do appreciate this doctor that I did change to, because he listened. He checked on me a lot. Because I work for a local hospital, if he saw me every other day, how are you? How's things going? How's your pain? So finally, I had another crazy situation to occur after all of this. And not to mention that during all this heavy bleeding, I kept getting yeast infections, bad yeast infections. Why not? Because I'm not giving it time to get no air, no breathing. I'm wearing these large maxi pads. It was just horrible. Finally had to go have another procedure, where this doctor said I'm going to do a DNC, and I'm going to do another, I'm going to do a DNC, and I had to have a LEAP procedure because now there was a lesion on my cervix. I had a abnormal pap smear through all of this. Now, mind you, I had an abnormal pap smear the year prior with the other OBGYN. He did his biopsy, said that I was fine, no problem. Now, I mentioned to him that I've had this procedure before some years prior. So ladies, when you keep having pap smears that are abnormal and they're doing biopsies, they need to do something else, because this abnormal cells are coming back. They keep coming back. And it's what they call precancerous cells, meaning that it's not cancer, but it can develop into cancer, but they can't tell you when, how long it'll take. It could be 2 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 15, it could be none. But that's what they call it, precancerous. So I had to have a leak procedure as well. Well, they electrocauterize this lesion off my cervix. They did an ultrasound before doing that, whereas they could not see into my uterus. There was something blocking. So once my doctor attempted to do a DNC, my scar tissue, I'm collapsed in that part of my uterus, and that scar tissue is there. And what is discovered was I'm bleeding under some parts of that scar tissue, and that's why I keep having a period. Instead of it burning the uterine lining completely, there's still some parts where I'm bleeding up under the uterine lining, which has been causing me excruciating pain, not just once a month, but throughout the month. I've had to cut back on, I used to walk a lot for health reasons. I couldn't do that because that ablation had failed. And the reason, one of the clues to it failing is I continue to bleed afterwards. I continue to spot and spot and spot and spot and spot. And then finally had a cycle and had another cycle. And then, like I said, all the floodgates open by that third month. That's a failed ablation. That's a failed ablation. You can't do anything about it because they say that's the possibilities of having one of those procedures, that there's a possibility that it might fail. I am one of those possibilities. Yes, it did fail. It did fail. So just imagine going through months of having sharp pains if you move too fast, sharp pains in the middle of the night if you roll over too fast. When your cycle comes, it feels as if someone is squeezing your lower back, which is actually your uterus contracting, trying to get all of that blood out that's being blocked by scar tissue. Yeah, that's me. That's me. So I think I'm going to title this one, Failed Uterine Ablation and How Birth Control Ruined My Life. Because now I'm unable to even attempt to have a child. Who's to say what the years of putting birth control, the medicine, the extra estrogen in my body, what it has done to me over the years that caused my uterus to just totally rebel against me once I remove those things from my body. Yep. So I know this was not too long, but I'm going to continue to let you all keep up with my journey here. But I'm going to bounce back from this. And there's more to come. There's more to come. There's more to come. But yeah, so that's what happened here. The use of birth control. We can think it's so wonderful, but we're inducing our body to things that are not naturally for the body. And we're expecting our body in the long run to just continue to accept it. Instead of putting in the work. And when I say put in the work, this is what I mean. One of the years I decided to do my Daniel fast for more than just the 21 days. I did it for 6 months. And within those 6 months, out of those 6 months, I will say 4 months, my cycle was wonderful. I had no cramping. I actually would start my cycle and be like, oh, let me check my calendar. It was supposed to come today. Because that PMS that you get right before, I wasn't even having that either on a straight vegan diet, drinking water, no pop, no coffee. Yeah, my body ended up, I was great at that time. I was great at that time. But I just wasn't thinking. And right after I did that, that's when I ended up using the IUD. I had went all of those months without any birth control, and I didn't have to deal with any cramping or nothing because I changed my diet. I cut out a lot of sugar, cut out sugar. My sugar, if I got any sugar breakdown, it was from the food that I ate, not the extra added sugar like in cakes and cookies and candy. I was used doing straight fruits and vegetables. So yeah, one of my tips is track your ovulation. Try your best to not have to deal with man-made birth control, and be good to your body, because we are what we eat. And I was at one of my healthiest moments, and I didn't even realize it. I just wanted a quick alternative measure to not having to worry about pregnancy and things like that. And that's the cost that I paid. Because yeah, I had some classmates and friends who were in their late 40s and still having children, so I know it can be done. But with the damage that I had did with all the birth control, my body just was not allowing it at all. So like I said, thanks for watching. Miracles and blessings to you all, and I'll see you next time. Please go ahead and hit that subscribe, because I'll be continuing to put out more content on different subjects and things like that. And thanks for watching Chosen Jewels with LaShawn.